Hello everyone and welcome to the very first Enduro World Series video podcast. My name's Rick McLaughlin and joining me as ever, I'm actually normally at this point in the audio podcast I rip into you a bit, but you have just made me a coffee and it was very nice and actually quite professional, so I'm not going to rip into you too much. It's Ruaridh Cunningham, winner of multiple big bike races in the past and current EWS sports coordinator, and I mean, you've got the ultimate prize in mountain biking now, which is presenting this podcast with me.
Exactly. And I get to look at your beautiful face in person.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm worried that we've built up a nice little podcast audience on the audio side of things, and now it's like, do you remember whenever you first see what a radio DJ looks like and you just go, no,
yeah,
I'm not about that.
You're afraid it's going to put people off. We're gonna lose listeners when
Exactly,
they actually see what we look like. Yeah.
We are in Ruaridh, the epicenter of the epicenter. For a start, we're in Innerleithen, which anybody listening to this in faraway shores is pretty much one of the UK hubs of mountain biking, certainly Scottish mountain biking. It's the living, breathing heart of it. And we are in No1 Peebles Road coffee shop, which, I mean, if you're going to have any kind of cycling discipline, the local coffee shop is the place. Massive thanks to the guys from No1 for letting us record here. But yeah, this is it, isn't it? This is like the centre.
It is. I mean, like the Tweed Valley is, like you say, the place to be in Scotland, if not the UK. And where better to get caffeinated before your long day of riding than the No1. Big thanks to Craig and even let us loose on his machine, which he was very brave to do.
He let you loose on a coffee machine, which is probably more expensive than most cars I've owned. And you did not disgrace yourself. I was quite impressed. It was. Do you think there's a career there? Maybe if this podcast really goes as badly as it has the potential to.
You never know. You never know. I've had enough practice on my own little setup over the years, but yeah, Craig's is. For any coffee geeks out there, it's a step up. It's all, automatic tampers and...
Oh, it's proper, isn't it? Yeah. If you like your coffee, this is the place to be. Right. This is our 24th podcast, believe it not. And it's the first video one we're doing, and we're using it to mark the second installment of our Road to the Tweed Valley series, where we're going to dive into a bit more depth on your involvement with the Vittoria EWS-E Tweed Valley. You're designing the course. We'll get to that in a second. There have been some developments on that front, haven't there? We've had some things move around. Yeah,
I mean we've been putting the final adjustments on the EWS course and also the EWS-E course as well. And just in the last week we've had some changes, not so much to the course but to the event hub and the location of the event. So it's all going to be out in the fields by Traquair House. Which truthfully I think it's really cool. It means we can have the kind of final stage of the event will finish in the field. We'll have like a big kind of bridge step down into the field. It'll all be visible. It'll be a really good atmosphere. Everything's going to be in one place. The stage finish is going to be in the event hub, and a really good way to conclude not only the event here but the 2021 series. So it's. Considering we're away in just over a week to the second block of racing in Europe, and then I'll come back and have a limited amount of time to get everything ready. I would be lying if I said there's not pressure on me to get it all done. But it's coming together. And we've got an amazing one of your mates on a Subaru outside. If you just heard that, listeners, or saw it out the window.
Good man yourself. The world is flat four.
We've got an amazing team, and I know a huge amount of volunteers now, and the trails team that have been looking ahead and prepping the stages have been amazing. And I've got every faith that when I come back, it's going to be ready to go. It'll be good. I
had this in my back pocket for about 10 months or so, and I sprung it on you the other day. We were in a van together last year. And you said the immortal words that, at least the end of the year next year will be really chilled out because of the Tweed Valley race, and it's us organising it. Do you still feel that way?
I wish I could take that back. But, I mean, truthfully, my memory's not great, so I don't recall saying
You've rang your bell a few times.
I think, I think you've I think you've made it up, but I'll convince myself of that. But yeah, I definitely would have said that in hindsight.
Right, let's go.
Definitely would have said that.
Let's zoom out for a wee second then. So you are, as you say, the grand fromage when it comes to course design for this couple of races. As a racer, what did you like in a race course? What did you look for? What was like, you know, whenever you came down after practice and went, yeah, that's a slice of me. What did you like?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't prefer the kind of steeper, more technical stages, but I think a big part of that was due to the fact that's what I was strong at. But truthfully, as I got more used to the discipline and became fitter, I actually had some of my better stage results on the kind of longer physical ones. So I honestly think that's the kind of the beauty of enduro is the variation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the ability for every venue is unique, and I think the Enduro World Series and the organisers and the venues we work with do a really good job of not trying to make stages and courses one way. They have this kind of blank canvas to showcase the destination and the venue and what makes people want to go and ride there. And I honestly think like the variation is what makes it kind of so unique and enjoyable. I think if you went to all these venues and every stage was the same length, the same gradient, the same surface, the same design, it would lose a lot of what makes the sport kind of special. And I think, I always, as I kind of began to get used to that, I didn't go to a race and kind of think, oh, I hope the stages are like this or I hope it's going to be like that. I'd go there and be like,
you're pinning your hopes on one thing, aren't you? Where in enduro you've got to be good at everything. That's what, like, I used to get confused when you would hear different pro riders from drier parts of the world saying that they hate mud, can't ride in mud, because you're like, well, you're gonna have to
learn.
you're gonna have to, and to win an Enduro World Series championship, you can't really have any bad days. Do you know what I mean? Your bad days, you've got to limit the damage. I guess one of the things that interests me as a mere mortal amateur mountain biker is whenever I go to somewhere, say like Fassa Bike Park, where we were just for the Met EWS Val di Fassa Trentino, I love that because those stages remind me of where I ride. It's kind of like, for want of a better expression, my jam. Do you know what I mean? It's like gradient suits me, the dirt suits me. Like, I feel at home because I feel confident there. Mm-hmm. Do pros have the same thing, or do you guys like to be challenged? Do you like to feel it difficult? Because I think, for example, we've got some pro-only races next year, which are obviously going to be maybe a step up in terms of technicality. Yeah. But is that what a pro looks for, that sort of challenge, or do you look for just comfort?
I don't think there's ever comfort. If you're going to be at the pointy end of racing, there's never comfort, because if the trail's easy, it means that you've got to go that extra bit faster. And I always used to I didn't used to be a fan of easy tracks because it just meant everybody was going to go fast and you had to go almost beyond the limit because there was nothing really holding you back. If the trails are really technical or really challenging, it's more difficult to go fast, but so therefore I feel that the pace is slightly slower because the terrain's almost more challenging than the speed. But it's racing now. If you look at how close the racing we've had is this year, not only in the not just in the men's field but the women's field as well, there's no comfort in the speed that those races are going. They are, if it's easy, they're going 100%. And if it's technical, they're riding at a pace that is for mere mortals bewildering.
It's shifted enduro, hasn't it? Because it used to be, even whenever I first started covering it properly in 2017, there was still a lot of talk about this. You need to be comfortable riding at 80 to 90% all the time, and that's gone now. I mean, you look at like Richie Rude, Jack Moyer, under half a second between them over 32 kilometers and 5 stages. It's 100% now, isn't it? There's no, like, that's gone.
Yeah, it has. And I think like you say, the level I think has just stepped up. There's more and more riders can go that speed, and and the bar has been raised.
Bikes are a lot better too.
Yeah,
bikes
they've grown
with the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're seeing that. We're seeing the depth of talent increase. And I think, truthfully as well, I think we're beginning to see racers actually kind of ride. I think enduro as a style and a kind of technique is beginning to kind of forge its own way. I think before it was like you had riders who were physical, and you had riders who were very technically gifted, maybe coming from downhill.
Two camps.
And I feel now it's like you have this rider who can race things, after one run, and effectively, you know what I mean, go 100%. But you can't. It's not riding on memory. It's like there's an ability of riding on instinct and reading the trail as you ride it, which you don't really have in any other discipline. And I think you begin to see that if you look at the way Jack and Richie ride specifically. They're very different styles, but like the way they kind of like pace the trail is quite similar.
It's interesting. I think we've mentioned it on a previous episode of the podcast. Like, it's something that Nigel Page said to me once in an interview, that one of Sam Hill's, possibly his biggest strength, that often people don't really give him the credit for, is his ability to walk down a stage and then be able to just commit to 100% everywhere. Do you know what I mean? That's like a very specific skill set. And I know certainly whenever he raced World Cup downhill, his practice, like, he didn't like. Everyone used to talk about, like, Sam hasn't practiced much and stuff, but that was it, because he could ride it once. Yeah. And then he could see where the time was and where he needed to be. But e-bikes, then, we're talking about, of course, the EWS-E race. We need to get geared up for this. The EWS-E season starts in Crans-Montana, new venue in Switzerland, a few weeks' time. For anyone who missed, there's a guy about to try and come into the coffee shop. This is a new thing.
Sorry, mate, they're closed. Sorry, mate.
Has that ever happened before? Have we had a podcast interrupted by somebody trying to buy coffee? I feel bad now. I do just want a coffee. So Crans-Montana, a few weeks' time. For anyone who missed the first ever season of EWS-E racing, which was last year, head over to EMBN. Now all the highlights are available on there, as well as a load of tech and a load of sort of insights. Steve Jones and the guys did a great job on that. Ruaridh, give us a rundown quickly of the format for EWS-E. What does it involve?
So the EWS-E racing, it consists of 3 loops. One loop for in the pro race, 1 loop for each battery. Loops are anywhere between 3 and 5 stages, and I'd say meterage ascending probably 800 meters to 1200 meters. Your mate and his Subaru's made me lose my train of thought. Riders will complete the loops, change a battery after each loop. They'll have half an hour in the pits to refuel, and then they're back out on it. Liaisons are tight, so we're really kind of pushing the uphill sections to make sure that riders aren't just able to cruise up with the motor.
It's one of the things that like is absolutely staggering. In that, like, the first race we had was in Zermatt for EWS-E. Stage 1 finished, and I'm obviously at the bottom of stages doing interviews during the racing. And I'll admit to this on here for the first time that I got completely lost on my way to the bottom of stage 1, pelting about on my e-bike on like those big Swiss access roads doing 30-40 mile an hour, desperately trying to work out where the race was, and spied one down below me, off-paced it down, saw where the stage finished, and then the access road liaison climbed up a bit, and I thought, what I'll do is, and I've done this before, is I'll stop at the top of this little climb and grab people as they go past me. The first people went past me at like 26 kilometers an hour, like full chat, because the liaisons were so tight to get to the start of the next stage, and you were just like, oh, this is a different thing. They've just done quite a long stage, quite a physical stage, and now they're back on the pedals to get back to the next one. It's full chat, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's an emphasis to make the liaisons as kind of technical and as challenging as possible. Like we aim for, where possible, all single track technical liaisons. Anyway, that's ridden e-bike. We've spoken on the podcast multiple times about there are almost as much fun on the way up as there are on the way down, and yeah, I think that was one of our big kind of big pushes with the e-bike racing, is in not just route them up fire roads at 25 kilometers an hour, but actually make the uphills like a challenging single track, and make these loops that, you know, take anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours challenging for the duration, not just the stages.
Well, we found that out in Pietra Ligure when we went there last year,
Yeah.
didn't we? Like it was the opposite, in that if Zermatt was, like, I know I'm in the wrong country here, but Autobahn, like flat out liaisons, Pietra was like you finished the stage and then you basically rode up another stage to get to the top of the next stage. It was incredibly difficult, and you came back, like, we would go for evening rides and try and do a couple of trails and use the liaisons, and you came back absolutely rinsed.
Yeah, pretty much as soon as you start pointing uphill, you were at threshold, weren't you?
Yeah.
Big Jim's handiwork in Pietra, making some very steep, very technical liaisons, and I've heard some rumours we might be using them again for some of the for the finale EWS-E. There might be a fairly sizable adventure, the e-bike race. So watch this space.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it's just, if anywhere, unsurprisingly, if anywhere on earth gets e-bikes, it is the finale outdoor region. Those guys are just killing it with what they're building. Little e-bike anecdote for you: was out for a family bike ride on Sunday. Now that my 5-year-old has gears, I'm not even the quickest on that ride anymore. And the first 12 bikes I saw were e-bikes. They're out there, aren't they?
Yeah.
We have, of course, EWS-E power stages too. Talk us through those.
So the power stages is a short uphill stage with a real emphasis on technicality and making it a real challenge. The stages are short just so the race doesn't blow apart and it doesn't begin to really factor into power to weight and who's got the most powerful motor. The emphasis is really on making it technical, awkward, kind of steep uphill stage that really, you know, celebrates a rider's technical climbing ability.
Because this is the thing, isn't it? If you haven't ridden an e-bike before, if you stall out on one of these technical climbs, it's so difficult to get going again. And I think it's definitely the power stage, from what we've learned so far, is that yes, you can make time on it, but you can also lose. Like we sort of calculated that if you get off the bike, you're talking about 30 seconds, aren't you? Which could be pivotal.
Yeah, I mean the distance or the duration for them is usually under 2 minutes, so 2 minutes would be considered quite a long one. But even at that, we saw, you know, last year some of the biggest time gaps come on the power stage, just with, you know, the ability of some of the racers. But yeah, it's a funny one, because I think there'll be a lot of riders out there who've ridden an e-bike who will think, I'm very, very confident at climbing technical terrain, and I'm sure they are. Try and do it as fast as you can, and it's completely different.
It's a different thing,
It's
isn't
completely
it?
different. It's you know, it's not about just working your way up. You've got to think about gears. You've got to think about, you know, kind of. You can't really set up into things. It's like you have to set up at speed, and you don't have the time to pause and.
You have to read so far ahead as well. Like, you've got to read your like a downhill run. You've got to read so far ahead of where you want to go. He's in here. We got him. Yeah, one of the things I want to talk to you about, as I mentioned, where I live, about an hour and a half north of here, e-bikes. They seem to be everywhere now. Tweed Valley, with the style of riding around here, is this somewhere that really suits the sort of possibilities that they open up?
Definitely. I don't think there's, if you've got a venue with hills, I think they can suit e-bikes. I think people maybe aren't using them to their full potential. Like, I'd certainly, if I was going out on my e-bike, wouldn't ride up a fire road to ride down a trail, as in I would look at a steep hill or a steep path or even an old track that's never ridden in reverse and go, can I get up
It's
that?
an interesting point, isn't it? Because you've only ever really thought about 50% of a ride previously. You've only thought about what trails you're going to ride down, not up.
Yeah. It kind of blurs that line between, say, like a trials bike or a motorized kind of enduro bike and a mountain bike.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you look at the amount of riders and racers from the motorised disciplines. I mean, like, you know, Markham Landry, our mate, your mate,
Levi Battista.
And then if you look at like the hard enduro racers, like, you know, Billy Bolt, you know, he's one of the best, you know, hard enduro riders in the world at the moment, and he's always charging about on a Santa Cruz e-bike, and, you know, doing some pretty amazing things on it. And
you're seeing those brands come in as well, Gas, Husqvarna, all dipping their toe in the e-bike water and trying to work out, is this a market that we need to be involved in? It's an exciting time though. I mean, on a personal / professional level, I find it exciting because we're right at the start of this sport working out what it's going to be, and we're hopefully trying to guide that conversation a bit and work with the riders and teams and organisers to find out how it's going to work in the future. It's just exciting, isn't it?
It is. I think the technology is evolving at a rate that is going to allow the sport to change, develop, progress relatively quickly, like we've seen in enduro in the last kind of 8 years. I think as motors become more capable, as batteries become more durable, as bikes become lighter, you're going to see this new sport evolve. And you know, the direction it's going and what people are now doing on e-bikes, and the not only that, but like the riders that are kind of championing them. You know, I just saw a video the other day with, you know, Danny McCaskill, arguably one of, if not the most famous mountain biker in the world, and pretty much all he does is ride an e-bike.
Certainly Scotland's second most famous mountain biker after yourself. But yeah, let's talk about those riders for a start. I mean, the French utterly dominating the first EWS-E season last year. Wins for Melanie Pujan, Nico Vulio, Yannick Pontal. Tracy Mosey, actually the only non-French rider to take a win on an e-bike last season. Do you think that once we get to the Tweed Valley race that we're going to see someone more accustomed to this quite specific set of conditions do well at that race, or do you think we're still going to be talking about those big sort of names? Because Nico's he's training, he's actually working out his body weight versus like the output of that power unit and stuff, isn't he? Like, I mean, are we going to see someone from around here tackle the likes of him?
Watch this space. There might be, depending on who enters, there might be a fairly high profile local rider in the e-bike race. You're going to
hand in your notice on Monday, are you? Get back down the gym.
He's more big time than me just now, but it'll be interesting. Obviously this year we've made a conscious effort to have the e-bike courses and the EWS courses separate. So I know there was talk at the beginning of the year about riders from different teams wanting to race both. We're hopefully going to see Josh Carlson this year. It'll be his main venture into the EWS-E format. I know Specialized, you know, Charlie Murray's been our mate of the podcast.
Good friend of the podcast, Charlie Murray.
Podium guy. You're welcome, Charlie.
One of our Podium inductees. Anytime someone comes on the podcast, up they go.
So we've seen him do quite a lot of the e-bike racing kind of out with the EWS season, so it'll be interesting to see if he jumps on an e-bike and has a crack. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think you know, Nico and Yannick Pontal and, you know, those guys are going to be right up there again, aren't they? It'll be interesting to see who decides to throw a leg over an e-bike. And
I think we could well see a few names out there, because as well, towards the end of the year, why not?
Exactly.
Why not quite an e-bike for? And there's one slightly more senior name that I know of who's going to be here. That'll be exciting as well, but we'll reveal that as and when we can. So yeah, I was doing a bit of video stuff last week with our EWS Tweed Valley ambassadors, Vittoria EWS Tweed Valley ambassadors, and this is sort of a new scheme that we're sort of piloting for that race, where we get 5 or 6 local riders of different age groups to sort of help us promote the event locally and sort of, you know, be a bit of a face for it. And one of the things during the interviews, all 5 or 6 of those interviews that they all came back with, was that they were actually hoping for a wet race, because the mud around here, it's quite maybe a bit of a dour Scottish outlook on it, but the mud here is a very specific kind of mud, isn't it? If that doesn't sound too crazy.
Yeah, I think it's a strange one. Unless it's biblical rain or dry, it can be pretty slick. But yeah, we're not hoping for mud, are we? I mean, we
No.
don't want to be traipsing around and
No.
I don't know what they're talking about. It's going to be dry.
It's going to be dry,
gonna be
definitely.
dry.
Well, it couldn't be drier.
Heat wave in October.
Are
You
you
heard it
getting
here
any?
first.
Are you getting any badgering about what the course is going to be? Are you opening your door in the morning to like briefcases of used £5 notes or anything, or any new follows on Strava that you weren't aware of? Or?
Yeah, it's kind of like that scene in The Life of Brian when he opens the window. No, I mean it's quite funny. There was rumours of what the course was going to be before I'd actually submitted it to forestry, and yeah, I think there's always going to be rumours. There's always going to be people saying, "Oh, that trail's had a bit of work. It's going to be that. It's going to be this." But I mean, the good thing is we've obviously got two completely different courses for EWS and EWS-E, which
if anything
then
speaks
is
to the
a-
volume of trails you've got around here, it's
Yeah.
two completely different set of courses.
yeah,
isn't
I
it?
mean we're really lucky with that, and we've got the the capacity and the space and the venue to do that. But that keeps things quite. I guess that even if rumours do get out and people do chat, but that keeps things a little bit more unpredictable because you don't know which is going to be in what race. But yeah, I think for me personally, I think it was about showcasing the best riding in the valley, not trying to do things differently.
Okay.
I think we see quite a lot of venues try and do something new and maybe lose the kind of the real reason people go there to ride, which is to have fun. So certainly haven't got massively kind of creative with it, but we'll see some new stages that haven't been raced before, and obviously with the new event hub and the finish in the field, that's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, obviously the e-bike's the big one. That's the new one. But yeah.
You're not letting anything out of the bag. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, you'll find out. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure once we come back from Italy and you've been used to riding in the dust for a month, and we'll do a course preview the week before,
I like the
you'll
mud.
be all right, mate.
I like the mud. Yeah, I welcome it, man. I welcome
It's
the
going to
mud.
be dry though.
It's going to be dry, but let's take then a bit of a broader look at what else is going to be going on at the Vittoria EWS-E and EWS Tweed Valley races, because it's set to be pretty busy. We've gone all out with this. We've got, of course, 2 top flight international bike races to enjoy between the 2 rounds. Both season finales. Wouldn't it be fantastic to have championships decided here as well? That's from a what I do point of view, that's always the dream, isn't it? To have a championship on the line at the last round.
If things continue to be as close as they are, it'll be probably 10 points going into the
you can see it
into the race.
You can see it.
Yeah, you totally can.
Away from the racing, then the racing component, of course, gets like bike geeks like me and you sweaty is there's lots happening too. We've got a festival village with the Dybro airbag with Matt Jones. He's going to be around for signing photos, showcasing some skills and some manoeuvres.
Is he bringing his Lambo into the field?
I don't know if he's bringing his Lambo. I've not heard. I mean, that's a long way to go in a Lamborghini. It's quite a fuel bill. But I actually say Matt Jones was I covered Red Bull Hardline a couple of years ago, and Matt Jones turned up with his wee dirt jump hardtail thing, and like one of the most impressive bits of mountain biking I've ever seen was him flipping that big Renegade.
Yeah.
And it was on the way into it, the bike was just tomahawking away underneath him, and you're just like, oh, this could be dangerous. But always good to see Matt, and he's always like a good draw, isn't he? There's going to be a pump track, including Hot Laps Challenge, one for you, Ruaridh. You can pitch yourself into that on the e-bike. There's going to be loads and loads of trade stands. Loads of top brands are going to be here showcasing their latest machinery. There's going to be actually tons of local live music. I've got a list of this, but I don't think everything's 100% confirmed, so we maybe go back to that on a later podcast. There's going to be lots of different like local sort of food vendors and stuff like that, and of course Tempest Beer Tent, Race Paddock. If anyone finds me in that tent, could you just return me to the production office? That would be great. And unless I'm crying, leave me alone if I'm crying.
I was out with the Trails team a few nights ago. Got to sample what may be the
Is there going to be an official beer?
EWS. Well, there might be.
Oofed.
But it was pretty good.
That could be career pinnacle right there. We've got an official beer. Yeah, Race Paddock, all the top international teams. Really, you know as well as I do that one of the best things about international level mountain bike racing is just the access you get as a fan. You can wander around the pits, see all the big names, see all the mechanics, get like up close and personal with the latest bikes and the latest tech. So just loads and loads of stuff going on. We've got the EWS Kids race as well, loads of ways for kids to get involved and sample racing maybe for the first time, or just experience what that's going to involve. There's a lot of fringe events, including live racing, doing ride outs. We've got an MTB film night. There's yoga, sports massage, product launches, the Santa Cruz bar at the Traquair Arms, just across the road from us here. I'm sure that'll be a quiet night down the library for those guys. So if that sounds like a slice of you, then head over to tweedvalley.enduroworldseries.com for more, for all the event schedules and what's going on where. Also worth doing if you fancy that, plus a chance to get closer to all the riders and teams and anyone else, and the two of us are included in that, and you also get a chance to get a big bag of EWS swag and your expenses covered, is to volunteer at that race. Head over to that same site, as I say, tweedvalley.enduroworldseries.com, for how you can get involved, get like face to face with the pros, and get probably the best seat in the cinema for the racing, isn't it, really? Let's move to the next race then, the Michelin EWS Ludenville. The last of the year's double headers, so 2 rounds back to back in the same week, and after the opening 4 rounds we have the makings of what looks like some supremely interesting battles, don't we? Let's start with the pro women's. Melanie Pujan versus Hattie Harnden versus Isabel Cordurier. Morgan Schar's not far off that battle either. I mean, Melanie Pujan's been a sledgehammer throughout the start of this season, hasn't she? But it weirdly feels like the impetus is with Hattie Harnden after that debut win in La Tuile. Yeah,
I think the win going into the break for Hattie would have been huge. That momentum and that confidence, carrying that into the break, I'd imagine she'll be more motivated than ever to, not that she needs to train anymore with how fit she seems to be, but she'll be more motivated than ever, kind of coming into the second half of the season. And also seen a lot of kind of social media posts from Isabeau on Instagram talking about she's been putting the work in and she's feeling like she's getting back to where she needs to be. So I'm sure she's going to come out swinging, and this is got to remember, this is the home race for the French riders this year, and
nothing bigger than a bike race in France, is
exactly,
there?
and they're going to want to win on home turf. So
Isabeau, it kind of feels like she's doing what Sam Hill did in 2019, in that she's just keeping herself in that conversation. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's the 2 out in front of her in the title race at the minute, but a lot of racing left to do yet this year, and she's right there. Should either of them slip up, and indeed she can beat either of them on their day as well. So really interesting. Pro men's, I think, like personally speaking, I'm fascinated to see battle rejoined between Jack Moyer, Richie Rood again. It's still going to be between those two right at the sharp end, isn't it?
Yeah, you feel those two guys have been so dominant in the first half of the season that it's going to take something. Either it's going to take big mistakes from both of them, or something special from somebody else to kind of reel them back in. They kind of distanced themselves on that third place. I think it's Jessie Mellon.
Jesse's third.
And yeah, you can imagine they've both gone away and been pretty motivated to try and come back and actually get more than a second ahead of the other guys. So fascinated to see how that pans out. And who's your money on come the end of the year?
Come the end of the year?
Yeah.
I'm not Mystic Meg, like I haven't got a crystal ball, but I don't know. I think I just get a gut feeling, and you can come back to this and remind me how wrong I was, but I think it's going to go to that last round, because I don't see, hopefully no injuries, hopefully everyone gets a clear run at it. I don't see any of those top 3 or 4 in the pro men or the pro women's actually really making any big mistakes. Do you know what I mean? It's like if they're all on the podium, if they're all in top 5, I think this could well go down to the wire, which is all I'm going to say for now. The round before it, the penultimate round, I'll make a prediction, but you're not going to get one out of me that easily, because you only stand to be proven wrong, don't you?
Exactly. I think I can see the men's race coming down to the final stage here, which I think would be incredible.
But that's a dream, isn't it?
And I think if you look at the women's title, I think you've got potential for that to be between more than 2 riders. I think the men's race will be between the 2 of them, between Jack and Richie, and I think the women's race could come down to 3 or 4 riders at the final round. But yeah, a lot of racing to do before then.
Yeah.
You know, we're gearing up to go away next week, and yeah, I've seen the courses for Ludenville from Ludovic. Going to be a big week. It's going to be 3,000 plus meters descend in both races. In the space of 4 or 5 days. So hope the riders have been putting the hours in the chairlift over the summer and getting those hands used to the long rough trails. But looks like a stunning location. I've never been.
Neither have I. Looking forward to it. The Pyrenees should be beautiful. Just a couple of bits of news before we wrap up. Then both Eddie and Windmasters out with hand and wrist injuries after the recent Maribor World Cup. Disappointing not to see those two, but they will obviously be at the races. I know Ed Bull Media House will be fired up, and Eddie will be trackside, I'm sure, with the pivot guys, but disappointing nonetheless.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, pretty crazy that both of them crashed. Brothers crashing at the same race.
I was going to say their poor mother, but I think she's probably been through the ringer with Empire anyway already.
Yeah, no, really unfortunate. I mean, we can't obviously at the same time get away from the fact that mountain biking does have that risk, and we quite often see injuries throughout the season. But and yeah, I guess Eddie and Win both kind of straddling two disciplines, like racing EWS and racing the World Cup, and I guess that kind of doubles your chance of having a crash.
We talked before about Jack Moyer opting to sit those World Cups out to focus on the championship, and although racing World Cups in between rounds historically has been great for bike speed and just great to keep you in that racing mindset, as you say, double the amount of races doubles your chances of getting injured at a bike race, doesn't it? Sadly,
no, it does. And I think you look at Jack, he's made quite a mature decision. I'm sure influenced by your mate Fab.
I had dinner with him once.
Yeah, I've heard. I'm sure he's made a decision based on giving himself the best opportunity to be there at the end of the year. And yeah, I think if you're in the title fight, you're not gonna risk it for kind of one result. But yeah, it's unfortunate for Eddie and Win, but you look, they're both their presence at the races is kind of sometimes bigger than what it is on the track, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they're big personalities, aren't they?
And, if Eddie's out in Ludenville, maybe we can get him involved in some.
Let's get him on the podcast. Let's get Eddie signed up as a member of the Good Friendly Podcast Club. Should point out as well, Michelin EWS Ludenville, we've still got limited spaces available in that race in EWS 100s, EWS 80, and there are still some EWSE spots available throughout the year as well. If you fancy packing the bike in the van, pack your friends, pack some food, and have a go yourself on the same stages raced by the pros. Ruaridh, how would you sum up then our first foray into the video podcast? You happy with how this has gone?
I mean, I've managed to look at my laptop most of the time rather than you, but
your eyes can only withstand so much, can't they?
I know it's been good. We've been given free rein of the #1 coffee bar, which has been incredible. Thanks again, Craig. Hopefully I've not changed the settings on your machine. It's nice to chat in person, truthfully.
It is, isn't it? And yeah, big thanks to #1. As I say, the epicenter of mountain biking in Scotland, if not the UK, is this cafe, and I think everyone, when you do come to the Vittoria EWS Tweed Valley, this is the spot that you will automatically gravitate towards yourself. Like, honestly, I take the handbrake off my car, it rolls to this cafe. So everyone, thanks very much for watching, and any audio subscribers, we will clip the audio from this and get it in your usual outlets as well if you, for some reason, don't enjoy looking at Ruaridh and I's faces, which, let's face it, understandable, 50%.
Massively understandable, yeah.
Ruaridh, thanks for your time.
Cheers, Rick.